What happens when a tofu delivery boy discovers his newfound love for racing? A transformation unfolds. Takumi Fujiwara is a quiet and aloof delivery boy who transforms himself completely into a roaring legend. Stick around for a high-octane journey that will give you an adrenaline rush. The story kicks off with introducing us to an 18-year-old boy named Takumi and his friend Itsuki, who both work at a gas station. Now Itsuki is a car maniac and keeps bugging Takumi to get an AE86 together, but Takumi couldn't care less. The two are also friends with a guy named Ikitani, who is the leader of Akina Speedstars, a local racing team. He takes the two to the Akina Mountain on his gorgeous S13 to witness the fun life of a racer. In an interesting turn of events, the Red Sons from Akagi, led by the Takahashi brothers named Ryosuke and Keisuke, arrive in order to challenge Ikitani because his team was the fastest in the area. Race time. Akagi Red Sons win, but on their way home, Keisuke gets schooled by an unexpected AE86 speedster. Keisuke's ego takes a hit, and he's deep in denial mode, convinced it's gotta be a ghost racer on that mountain. Meanwhile, Takumi goes on a date with his friend Mogi, who suggests that they should go somewhere fun on the weekend. I see some romance budding. On the other hand, Ikitani learns that the infamous AE86 belongs to Takumi's father, Bunto Fujiwara. At night, a fuming Keisuke cruises, waiting for the AE86 to reappear, but it's a no-show. Guess who pulls up at Ikitani's gas station? It's Keisuke. He tells Ikitani about the legendary AE86 and also mentions how he lost. Ikitani could not believe his ears. And guess what? The twist of twists. Takumi's been the AE86 driver all along. Meanwhile, Ikitani goes to Bunto and requests him to teach him how to tackle the infamous Akagi Red Sons. However, according to Bunto, Ikitani would have to figure it out himself. Do you guys smell character development? Ikitani's cruising takes a wild turn, literally. His car is now a twisted mess, and he's out of the race. With no option left, he heads to Bunto and requests him to race in his place. But since he's not interested in these kiddie fights, he tells Takumi to go and race in his place. We're introduced to another formidable racing team named Myogi Night Kids, led by Takeshi. Back to the location of the race, the Red Sons have arrived, and Ikitani's sweating bullets, waiting for the legendary AE86 to show up. On the other hand, the Takahashi brothers also expect the arrival of the AE86. Takumi, who was not interested in going, suddenly made up his mind and headed towards the location. Ikitani is disheartened and tells Kenji to race in his place, but surprise, surprise, our boy Takumi shows up in his legendary AE86. Ikitani is not pleased to see Takumi as he is looking forward to Bunto's arrival, but when he learns that Takumi has already beaten Keisuke once, he decides to put his trust in Takumi. These guys definitely have no idea what's about to come. Anyway, the race starts, and Keisuke, determined not to hold back, roars ahead initially, but Takumi soon catches up to him, shocking him and everyone in the audience. Takumi's AE86 was able to outrun Keisuke's FD, leaving everyone speechless. Takumi wins the race without even breaking a sweat. The Akina Speedstars are over the moon, while Ryosuke's face could curdle new milk. The winner goes home to rest while the loser goes with his brother to the site where Takumi's car overtook him. The brothers discussed all possible causes behind Takumi's victory, and Ryosuke decided to challenge the new legend himself. Meanwhile, Takumi's on a beach date with Mogi, but his mind keeps drifting back to that epic race. The thought of driving was giving him a thrill, surprisingly. Meanwhile, Ikitani mentions to Itsuki and Kenji how he wants to recruit Takumi to his team, and Itsuki believes that he can convince him. And what's this? A late-night showdown between Ryosuke and his FD and Takeshi and his R32? Looks like the racetrack is heating up again. So, Ryosuke had no idea that a new challenger in the form of Takeshi had appeared. When he noticed Takeshi following him, he dropped his speed to see the kind of car chasing him. Ryosuke then decided to challenge him, and Takeshi understood the assignment. Takeshi was able to keep up with Ryosuke's car, and the two decided to stop, introducing themselves to each other. Ikitani and the gang are all ears about Takumi's drifting prowess. Ikitani even wants a front-row seat in the AE86 as he wants to see Takumi drift. At night, Takumi takes Ikitani on a drive and surprises him with his perfect control of his AE86. Meanwhile, Ryosuke, Keisuke, and their teammate are scheming. They're considering the possibility of Takeshi taking on Takumi before they can. But Takeshi? He's cruising past Small Fry like a pro, eagerly waiting for that legendary AE86 showdown on the road. At school, Takumi gets into a fight with a bunch of boys who are discussing Mogi and not in a nice way. Later at work, Takumi is given a task to deliver some papers to the Yamada shop. That's when Takeshi rolls in, giving Itsuki a message to pass on. A weekend race challenge for Takumi. When Takumi comes back, Itsuki asks Takumi if he will be free on the weekend. Takumi's reply? A flat-out no. The word of Takeshi challenging Takumi gets out pretty quickly, and Takumi learns about it as well. Later at night, Takeshi comes across Keisuke, who tries his best to convince him to take on Takeshi's challenge. At work, Itsuki tells Ikitani that he will go to Takeshi and apologize to him as Takumi is not interested in racing against him. Meanwhile, Takumi's boss drops some racing wisdom, sparking a change of heart. Our boy decides to go for it and accepts Takeshi's challenge. But when Takumi rushes home to grab his AE-86, guess what? Bunto's out on a drinking spree and the car's nowhere to be found. Uh-oh. The crowd is desperately waiting for Takumi to show up, but he's nowhere to be seen. Ikitani heads to Takumi's place to get him, but Takumi spills the beans on the car not at home and with his father. He revealed to Ikitani that he had already made up his mind about the race and was just waiting for the car to arrive. Meanwhile, Takeshi and the Takahashi brothers eagerly wait for Takumi to show up. Luckily, Bunto arrived just in time and Takumi rushed to the location of the race. As Itsuki was contemplating apologizing to Takeshi, Takumi shows up and saves the day. He's excited to race against Takeshi, but what he doesn't know is that Bunto has made some tweaks to his car that Takumi has no idea about. This will be a true test for Takumi. The race starts with a bang, and Takeshi's R32 takes the lead. Meanwhile, the Takahashi brothers also decide to follow the two racers. As soon as the first corner of the road arrives, Takumi drifts past smoothly despite his car being tweaked. Our boy finally realized that his father fiddled with the car while he was out, and was not just drinking. Takumi keeps up with Takeshi, but the distance between them widens after every hairpin turn. Now, Takumi decided to close their gap at a high-speed corner. Takeshi's in a pickle. His car ain't listening because he's been wrestling the steering wheel too hard. Both Takumi and Takeshi were getting closer and closer to the finish line with the audience eagerly anticipating the winner. The 5 hairpins were upon our racers, and because of these, Keisuke lost to Takumi. Anyway, with each passing hairpin, Takeshi was losing his patience because Takumi was closing in on him. And then, it happened. Takumi's AE-86 rocketed past Takeshi's R32, leaving him in the dust. The victory was sweet. The next morning, Itsuki surprises everyone with the new 86 that he bought for himself. He was too excited about his new purchase, but his boss popped the bubble by telling him that he ended up buying an 85 instead of an 86. When Ikitani and Kenji started making fun of him, he got upset and ran away. Takumi went after him and comforted him, telling him that he would love to drive his new 85. At night, our duo runs into some car critics who diss Itsuki's ride and leave. Annoyed, Takumi decides to chase them down and serve up a lesson. Takumi catches up with the guys pretty quickly and surprises them from behind. He was able to outrun their cars without even breaking a sweat. They couldn't believe they lost to someone driving an 85. The next morning, Ikitani's S13 arrives after getting repaired. Meanwhile, Itsuki's spilling the beans about their little midnight escapade, making his boss and Ikitani believe Takumi's some kind of car-driving wizard. We're introduced to one of the members of the Myogi Night Kids named Shingo, who expresses his disappointment in Takeshi being defeated in a race. He plans on challenging Takumi and defeating him, even if it means he has to send his car to the scrapyard. That night, Ikitani took out his S13 in order to train for a bit, and noticed Shingo behind him who did not have good intentions. Shingo hit Ikitani's car's bumper and destabilized it effortlessly. Ikitani can't keep up with Shingo's EG6 no matter how hard he tries. He's starting to think that maybe, just maybe, Shingo's car is faster than Takumi's trusty 86. Say what? The next morning, Ikitani tells the group about his encounter with Shingo and learns about the technique that the guy used. Ikitani decides to make Shingo pay for humiliating him like this. After that, Takumi and Itsuki go on a double date with Mogi and her friend Saori. Later, Ikitani requests, practically begs, Takumi to drive his S13. When Takumi drives it, Ikitani gets shocked as he didn't know his car could go this fast. When they got back, Ikitani could still not figure out Takumi's technique and how he drifts so effortlessly. Just then, Shingo arrives and Ikitani recognizes him instantly. Shingo has a very interesting proposal. He wants to race against Takumi, but with their right hand taped to the steering wheel. The Takahashi brothers get the wind of the upcoming race between Takumi and Shingo. They decide to check out the race. Meanwhile, Ikitani and Kenji visit Bunto and tell him to convince Takumi not to take part in the duct tape race. But it's too late since it's the day of the race, and both Shingo and Takumi show up for their ultimate showdown. Ikitani tries to talk Takumi out of it, but he does not plan on backing out in the least. With their right hand taped to the steering wheel, the race between Takumi and Shingo starts. Takumi takes the lead while Shingo is looking forward to how many corners Takumi could survive. And whoa! Takumi narrowly dodges, crashing into the road rail on the first corner, and it hits him just how risky this race is. Meanwhile, Iketani decides to follow Takumi as he has a bad feeling about the race. On the other hand, Takumi was slowly getting the hang of it. Shingo, seeing Takumi's skills improve, decides to play dirty and hits Takumi's 86 bumper, nearly causing an accident. But our boy's quick reflexes save the day, and he keeps going like nothing has happened. Takumi is extremely pissed at the fact that Shingo tried to waver him on purpose. He floored the gas and started driving in a completely different manner, hitting the road rail every time he passed a corner. He closes the gap between his 86 and Shingo's EG6. Shingo realizes that his car is reaching its limit. He miscalculated a bit and Takumi outran his car. Desperate times call for desperate measures, and Shingo's thinking dirty. But karma's a street racer's worst enemy. He ends up in an accident, defeated and humbled. The next day, Iketani comes across a girl who needs some help with fixing her car and instantly falls in love with her. After Iketani fixes up her car, she thanks him and forcefully gives him her number, introducing herself as Meiko. We're introduced to two girls who are seen drifting on the road, with one of them driving and the other one giving her instructions. Meanwhile, Iketani decides to meet Meiko and Kenji. Takumi and Itsuki follow him. They eventually get busted by Iketani. Iketani introduces them to Meiko and leaves with her. Meanwhile, the rest of the boys learn about the woman who was the fastest racer in Mount Usue with her Sylvia. On the other hand, Iketani learns that Meiko is highly interested in cars and the world of racing. This makes him fall even more for her. At night, our boys decide to head back home, but on their way back, Iketani's car loses control, and he stops it in the middle of the road. That's when he comes across Meiko, who is driving her Sylvia along with her friend, Sayuki. The next day, Meiko calls Iketani for a discussion. She's ready to hang up her racing gloves because nobody sees her as girlfriend material anymore. Her final wish? A showdown against an 86 at Mount Usue, the ultimate racing farewell. Meiko, in a daring move, offers Iketani something a bit unexpected, taking her virginity. But Iketani, ever the gentleman, politely declines her proposition. Instead, he's sticking to his promise to make her dream of racing against the 86 come true. Iketani, in a bold move, requests Takumi to step up and race against Meiko. After some contemplation, Takumi gives a nod of agreement. The boys head to Mount Usui for the race. On their way, Iketani gets an earful from Kenji for selling out Takumi like that. He wanted Iketani to stop Takumi, and when he tried to do that, Takumi refused to back down. Why? Because he had his own agenda now. He didn't care about winning or losing. He just wanted to race in a new area. The boys head to the location and meet Meiko and Sayuki. Sayuki told the boys that they'll be doing a cat-and-mouse chase race. With multiple rounds in the mix, Takumi decides to take up the role of the chaser in the first round. And with the race about to kick off, Takumi's got a trick or two up his sleeve to secure that victory. Initially, Takumi struggles to keep up with Meiko's Sylvia, as he was not familiar with the area they were racing in. However, he soon picked up the pace, and the girls were struggling to shake him off. On the other hand, Takumi was still having a hard time keeping up with them. As they approach the notorious C121 turn, both Meiko and Takumi decide it's time for a drift showdown. They slip and slide through the corner at the same speed. But here comes the shocker. Takumi pulls off a flawless turn. Sayuki was losing focus and was not helping Meiko anymore. But after getting an earful from Meiko, she came back to her senses, ready to be her navigator again. Meiko decides to not look back on Takumi's 86 and focus on what's ahead of her. She was too conscious of him, and that's why she couldn't be her usual self before. She continues her flawless drifting with the help of her trusty navigator, Sayuki. Meanwhile, Takumi fears that he might exceed his car's limit soon. However, he noticed a sharp turn ahead and slowed down his car. Sayuki notices him and gets distracted for a bit, and oops, Meiko ends up taking the turn too sharply, and that's when Takumi sees his chance. Takumi picks up the pace, and Sayuki tells Meiko to spin away from him. Luckily, they didn't get hit by Takumi's car, but he was able to stop them, making them lose the race. The boys are shocked as well as pleased to learn that Takumi actually won from Meiko. The next morning, Takumi, Iketani, Kenji, and Itsuki have a lot of fun in a water park with Meiko and Sayuki. Meiko approaches Iketani when he's alone and thanks him for giving her a chance to race against Takumi's legendary 86. She tells him that will keep her promise of her offer and will wait for him later at night. Later, Iketani notices Ryosuke's photo in Mako's wallet. He learns from her that she has a crush on a street racer, and because of him, she got herself involved in racing. Iketani realized that she was out of his league. Later, Meiko shows up to the place she was supposed to meet with Iketani first, but Iketani is not too sure about going there. After having a conversation with his boss, he realized that he had been thinking everything wrong and rushed to the place. But when he got there, it was too late, and Meiko had left. Plot twist alert. Takumi gets a bouquet of flowers from Ryosuke, and guess what? It's not a friendly floral gesture, it's a challenge to a race at the peak of Mount Akina. The next day, during his date with Mogi, he keeps drifting off in his own thoughts, upsetting Mogi. Takumi then tells her about his upcoming race with Ryosuke, telling her how he keeps thinking about it. At school, Itsuki had also noticed a change in Takumi's behavior. Meanwhile, Keisuke had been training a new member in their team named Kenta. He also has a match with Takeshi in a few days. Kenta believes that he should challenge Takumi, but Keisuke tells him to be patient as they need to focus on Takeshi first. It's the night of Keisuke and Takeshi's race against each other, and our boys arrive at the location as well. The race starts, and Takeshi takes the lead, but he wasn't able to shake Keisuke off. While Ryosuke was not present to see Keisuke's performance, he was getting all the information from one of his teammates over the phone. Soon enough, it starts raining, making the road even more slippery. Keisuke was able to outrun Takeshi and ended up winning. Kenta then decided to challenge Takumi to a race right there and then. Surprisingly, Takumi agrees to take on this challenge. The race between Kenta and Takumi starts with the bang, and Kenta takes the lead. He manages to widen the gap between his car and Takumi's 86, but Takumi picks up speed after drifting on a sharp turn and catches up to Kenta. Takumi glides past Kenta's car like it's a walk in the rainy park. And guess what? He crosses the finish line in style, snatching up the victory. During their work, Iketani and the boys discuss how formidable of an opponent Ryosuke is and how the race is going to be very different from all the other races Takumi has taken part in. 2 days before the ultimate showdown, Ryosuke adjusts his car according to the trail. He looks forward to racing against the legendary 86. It's finally the night of the race. Ryosuke tells Keisuke that he will retire from racing if he loses against Takumi. The ultimate showdown between Takumi and Ryosuke starts, and Takumi takes the lead. Keisuke knows that his brother always lets his opponents take the lead first, and then defeats them flawlessly. Meanwhile, Ryosuke notices how much Takumi's driving has improved. Takumi soon realizes that even though he was using full power, Ryosuke was still at his tail. He was not able to shake him off. Takumi started panicking and thinking that he might lose the race. While panicking, Takumi nearly got into an accident but controlled the speed timely. However, it gave Ryosuke's White Comet an opening and he went ahead of Takumi. Soon enough, the White Comet's tires started to wear out, and that's how Takumi closed the distance between their cars and got ahead of Ryosuke, winning the race. After the race, Ryosuke acknowledged Takumi's skills but also told him to set his eyes on bigger goals. After all, Takumi had defeated everyone in Gunma. That's it for today. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, please give it thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more anime recaps. See you in the next video. Until then, goodbye.